Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would at least report the news that I've been recently hearing. Now, apparently, nothing has necessarily been confirmed with this, but apparently, at least in recent talks, it is being said overall by certain sources that a very big unification fight can happen next in the sport of boxing. And of course, the fight that I'm talking about is the Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson unification fight. And I think that this is a very, very big fight. I think that both of these guys are extraordinarily talented fighters. When I took a look at Shakur Stevenson in his last performance against that of Jamel Herring, I thought that it was a very, very great performance. He completely dominated him. He even stopped him, I believe. And Shakur Stevenson, he's not necessarily known for someone who has A grade power, but, he at least has, excuse me, in my opinion, what would be maybe B grade power, especially if he tees off on you. Oscar Valdez is a person to where, when I take a look at him compared to Shakur Stevenson, he is a very technically sound fighter. I don't know if I would say that he's necessarily as slick or as speedy as that of a Shakur Stevenson, but Oscar Valdez is a very, very tight fighter. He is a person, and when I say tight, I'm talking about a person that, in my opinion, who has a very, very good skill set. In that last fight, he did look like he had a great amount of trouble against that one Brazilian fighter. But styles make fights. And Shakur Stevenson, I don't believe that he's as big as that Brazilian fighter was. I'm not even quite sure if he's as powerful. But I do believe that he is more skilled than what that Brazilian fighter is. Anyways, it is going to be very particularly interesting to see what this matchup, or, who is going to win this matchup if this matchup does happen. And apparently from certain sources, from what I'm hearing right now, it is possible that this fight may happen on April 30th, which I think, of course, would be very, very decent, exciting news. Who do I personally think would win this fight? At the current moment in time, I would probably have to bet on Mr. Shakur Stevenson. I just think that Shakur Stevenson, I think that his feet, I think that his hand speed, and I think that his defensive responsibility, I think that it personally may be a little bit too much for Oscar Valdez. I don't think personally that he would knock out Oscar Valdez. That's not me saying that, it's not impossible to hurt Oscar Valdez. I've seen Oscar Valdez knocked down and hurt a couple times in his career. But this is also going to be a very interesting test for Mr. Shakur Stevenson, because Oscar Valdez, he's no slouch. This is not a dude all in all that, in my opinion, is just, another basic fighter. He is a very, very talented fighter. He's a person that has very good fundamentals. I think he's a very good counterpuncher, very decently powerful as well. I think that Oscar Valdez, for that weight division, he does have legitimate A-grade power. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see where this fight goes and who could potentially win this matchup. Now, there was news here and there about maybe Shakur Stevenson possibly going up and facing Vasily Lomachenko. And I had certain people come on my channel and say, oh, you're just spreading news, and oh, no, you're just spreading narratives, quit with the cap. Well, I'm not trying to cap with anything or anything like that. I'm just overall trying to have a conversation. There were certain conversations talking about that maybe it's possible that if Bob Arum wanted to set up Vasily Lomachenko versus Shakur Stevenson, that he would. Do I think that the fight is likely? No, I don't, because I think that I think that Bob Arum is going to try his hardest to get Vasily Lomachenko that George Kambosos fight. If I had to guess, that's more than likely what the next fight is going to be. But we'll see what happens for Mr. Vasily Lomachenko. So those are two fights, actually, that I would very much love to see happen. I would love to see the Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez fight. I also would love to see the George Kambosos versus Vasily Lomachenko fight, just to see if Vasily Lomachenko, if he could potentially get his belts back. But we'll see all in all what happens, or at least, those belts back. But when it comes to Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson, I do think that this is a great fight. I think that it would be one of the top fights of the year. I think that it would be a very, very great fight. I would favor Shakur Stevenson in this fight probably 60-40, like I said. I think that he has a style that maybe may trouble Oscar Valdez. But I don't think that Oscar Valdez is a person that, cannot handle great fighters. I do think that he is a person that has a great amount of talent. Of course, last year he had a very great performance against that one top Mexican fighter, Mr. Miguel Berchelt. And he showed all in all that not only could he handle the style of Miguel Berchelt, but he also had enough power to really compete with those top competitors. So Shakur Stevenson, he's going to have to be very, very careful in this fight. He's going to have to be very careful of Oscar Valdez's skill set. He's also going to have to be very careful of his power, because Oscar Valdez, I do believe that he is naturally more powerful by a decent amount than what Shakur Stevenson is. But Shakur Stevenson is going to be naturally more speedy. Who do I think, all in all, well, what do I think they'll have to do in order to win the fight? Well, I think Shakur Stevenson, more than likely, he probably is going to have to be on the back foot, and he's probably going to have to try to outbox Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez, even though he is decently fast, I don't know if he quite has the speed of that of a Shakur Stevenson. When it comes to Oscar Valdez, what do I think he needs to do to get in on Shakur Stevenson? I think all in all that he needs to start jabbing to the body. I think he needs to cut off the ring very, very well. Get some hooks to the body, dig to the body early on, get that left hook up to the head, because sometimes when I have seen Shakur Stevenson, he will get hit with a left hook. So we'll see all in all what happens there. And Shakur does need to tighten up his defense in this fight. His last fight, I thought that he looked phenomenal. I thought that his defensive responsibility and his reflexes looked very, very good. But sometimes in some of his fights, I have seen Shakur Stevenson get hit here and there. I believe that he's probably going to be, like I said, he reminds me of a smaller version of Terrence Bud Crawford, where Terrence Bud Crawford in some of his, fights against, mediocre opponents, he may get hit up a little bit, but he kind of rises to the occasion overall the higher the opponent is of class. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. If this fight does happen, I think that it's a fantastic fight. I would love to see this fight happen. I would favor Shakur Stevenson 60-40. But this is a fantastic fight. Oscar Valdez is an extremely highly skilled fighter, and it's going to be very interesting to see who potentially wins this fight. Now, just to answer the question all in all, for the certain people that may say, well, would the person who wins this fight be on your top 10 pound for pound list, whoever wins this fight? I'm not necessarily sure. I would have to take a look at it. I think that would depend on if Vasily Lomachenko, if he is able to get the titles from George Kambosos or whoever is possibly able to win at 135. If Devin Haney or Vasily Lomachenko or Gervonta Tank, Gervonta Tank Davis and Vasily Lomachenko, they're already on my top 10 pound for pound list. But if Devin Haney, for example, let's say that he were able overall to beat George Kambosos, and Stevenson, let's say, or, whoever wins this fight, that to me, they pretty much would be somewhat on the same level. But if George Kambosos, Devin Haney, the winner of that fight, they may even have to be a little bit above whoever wins this fight. Well, potentially, arguably, because these guys are highly skilled fighters as well. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it'll be very, very interesting. What I will say is this: whoever wins this fight, both of these fighters are already in my top 20 pound per pound. So whoever does win this fight, they certainly have a very, very big potential of making my top 10 pound per pound list. Probably the lower end of it, but when it comes down to it, they do have a very, very decent chance because, of course, whoever were to win this fight, it would be an A-grade win either way. Both of these guys are extraordinarily talented. I believe that both of them are multi-weight division champions, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see who ends up pulling off this fight if it does happen. But anyways, that's really all I got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.